Warhammer. From 40k to fantasy to even AOS, I have always enjoyed Warhammer since I got into it like 2 years ago. And as you can tell from that whole female custodies video that I made basically last week, that I did not expect to blow up as much. But I mean, here we are. And today I want to sort of steer away from the whole female custodies controversy, because that's not what this video is about. Today I want to talk about Warhammer, more specifically Warhammer Fantasy / AOS. And I want to talk about a specific faction in the AOS Age of Sigmar universe that I've really enjoyed and I want to share with you all. Sure, it's not the only faction that I want to play or have fun with. I mean, I want to collect the Lizardmen and the Skaven next, because, you know, they're fucking cool. But this faction, in my opinion, definitely is probably one of my more favorite Warhammer factions. What kind of faction am I talking about? Well, today I'm going to be telling you why I love the ogre. So for starters, what is the Ogre Kingdoms? Well, to keep their lore simple and straight, the ogres are essentially these big, fat, Mongolian creatures that were created by a bunch of giant space frogs called the Old Ones, who, well, basically fucked off after the Chaos Gods took over the world, and soon the ogres basically dwelled near Grand Cathay, which is basically just Warhammer China. Over time, the ogres began encroaching on the Cathayans and started eating their livestock and all that stuff, so the Cathayans got pissed and decided to punish them by yeeting a giant meteor at their homeland, killing half of them and causing the rest to migrate on forward to a giant mountain range where they started feeding off larger animals who turned out to be livestock of even larger beasts called the Sky Titans, who the ogres devoured into extinction because they're that freaking hungry. And over time, they also found this thing called the Great Maw, which is like a giant sarlacc pit that was created by the comet, supposedly, before settling in the mountains of Morn, and now they're a playable faction in Warhammer. So, why do I love the Ogre Kingdom so much? Well, that has to do with mostly their lore, their history, their characters, and all that stuff. But to keep it simple, let's talk about the legendary lords first, starting off with Greasus Goldtooth. Greasus Goldtooth was probably one of the greatest over-tyrants of the Ogre Kingdoms. I mean, the dude basically founded the Ogre Kingdoms. He started off as the lonely son of Groth Goldtooth, the previous leader of the Goldtooth tribe. Soon Greasus wanted to become leader, and in order to become leader, he had to kill Nita's father, which he ended up doing. But despite being the leader of one of the most wealthy ogre tribes in the Mountains of Morn, Greasus' hunger wasn't satisfied. So you know what he did? He declared that every ogre leader needed to pay tithes to him. Of course, the ogres laughed in his face and decided to send out a few ogre hitmen to go take him out. But Greasus quickly proved to be one of the smartest and greatest ogres of all time, because he decided, well, hey, if these ogres aren't going to give me the respect I need, then I'm just going to have to crack some skulls. So he started by killing the first ogre tribe by summoning a giant avalanche on their heads. The second ogre tribe had their leader brutally beaten and eaten alive after Greasus challenged him to a duel, before Greasus started soloing all the previous over-tyrants' guards and killing them. And finally, to top it all off, a massive orc warg led by Uruk Ironskull approached the Firemouth, a giant volcano that ogres basically reveled in and worshipped as a second Great Maw, before, you know, Uruk and his boys showed up and started terrorizing the shit out of it. So you know what Greasus and his army did? He got every single ogre there, planned out a strategical advantage which basically allowed him to get on top of Uruk's massive army before killing the orc war boss to death by crushing him with his own weight. Let's not forget about Scrag the Slaughterer too, a powerful ogre butcher who basically got his name after one day cooking his over-tyrant's favorite Noblar. he goofed up and, well, he got his hands cut off and eaten as punishment, and was thrown into the very cavern where he condemned most runt ogres to become, well, gorgers. In response to this, Scrag basically had enough, took two of his most trusted butcher tools, shoved them into the stubs of his arms, before wandering into the dark cave alone, slaughtering the Alpha Gorger there, becoming the new leader of the Gorgers, and unleashing hell on his tribe and taking revenge by serving up his own tyrant on a platter. Man, these two just have the most dark and badass stories, and to be honest, I kind of love them for that. So then, why do I love their characters? Well, because for one, they have fucking cool ass backstories, but two, they just have so much character with them. Like when you look at like Greasus, you can tell he's a big king who basically just wants like everything. He's basically greed made incarnate, which fits well with the ogre's theme of ever-present hunger and wanting to eat everything. Same thing with Scrag too. I mean, look at him. He looks like a freaking like psychopath who's gonna cut you up and eat you, and that's exactly what he does. I mean, he's got the whole freaking cauldron trailed behind his back. He's got his knife arms ready to cut you up and turn you into a big, juicy, delicious meal. And that's one of the reasons why I guess I like these guys, is because just their whole gritty aesthetic, but also the fact that they aren't afraid to be messy with it, is what, in my opinion, draws me to these ogre lords in specifically. Ogres can also be mercenaries too, which allows them to explore the world, and you can have many different types of ogres as well. You can have your Renaissance ogres, you can have your pirate ogres, hell, you can even have fucking whatever the hell this ogre was. It's like a freaking mother ogre, I guess. But, you know, I just find it the more goofier, the better. And that's one of the main points with ogres, too. Because another cool thing about ogres is their, well, aesthetic, if you will. Now, a lot of people will tell you that the ogres are based on the Mongols, which is true. I mean, just look at their aesthetic. But that's not the only thing that the ogres, I feel like, are based on. As pointed out by some YouTubers who I cannot find for the life of me, the ogres have a lot of similarities to ancient cave people and prehistoric history, if you will. Ranging from the ogres literally painting cave paintings and, you know, huddling around a fire like, you know, your stereotypical version of a caveman would do, to them literally having prehistoric beasts like Mournfangs, Thunder Tusks, and stone horns that they literally charge in the battle with. Which, to be fair, I mean, look at them. They literally look like prehistoric monsters. And that's one of the reasons why I also like the Ogre Kingdoms, because of their big aesthetic. Now, as a kid, I used to have this, like, book about, like, prehistoric animals. More specifically, ones during the Ice Age and all that, because at the time I was obsessed with that kind of stuff. And I feel like the ogres sort of generate that vibe, but in a fantasy kind of sense. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm so drawn to the ogres, is just that aesthetic alone. That whole prehistoric aesthetic, them riding their horrific beasts in the battle, it just makes them, in my opinion at least, a lot more of a funner army to play. Not the funnest army, but in my opinion, a funner army, in my opinion. They're like orcs, but with a more prehistoric theme attached to them, if you will. Another reason why I love the Ogre Kingdoms is, well, their models. I mean, have you seen the Thunder Tusk model or the Iron Blaster model? I mean, just look at these models. They're so freaking detailed and beautiful and freaking awesome to look at, like, holy crap. I mean, hell, I've been collecting some of them. Here's an image of my whole Ogre Mod Tribe's army for Age of Sigmar. It's not complete yet. I want to collect more of them. But once I do get them complete, I will end up loving them to death. And that is the point I'm trying to make, I guess. It's just something about the ogres that draws me to them. And I feel like that's their aesthetic. Being their prehistoric aesthetic. Their characters can be mercenaries who travel around the world, which can give them more unique designs and customability, and the fact that they have big models that are freaking easy to paint. It's just one of the reasons why I adore the Ogre Kingdoms. That's why a lot of the Total War footage, which I've been showing throughout the video, also made me love them even more, because, I mean, come on now. That whole, like, trailer they did with the ogres singing around the fire and all that stuff, that was just amazing. I would bop to that beat every fucking day. That is just a banger. But overall, That was my thoughts on why I love the ogres. Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Please leave your comments below. This is probably going to be one of the, I'm not going to say last Warhammer videos I'm going to make, but it's definitely going to be one of the last in a while, because the rest of the videos that I'm planning to make in the future are probably not going to focus on Warhammer that much. But in the future, I will eventually talk about Warhammer, because for now at least it's kind of going down the drain. I won't say going down the drain, but I mean, with the whole female custodes controversy, it might as well be. But I mean, who knows? Like, honestly, like, for now though, I'm going to focus on other things, and who knows, maybe I will come back to Warhammer at some point, just not right now. I'm gonna just take a little breather from it, if that's fine with you guys. So, I hope you enjoy. Please have a wonderful day, and remember, for the great Maw.